So fellow Canadian Greg Doucette made a video about me. He responded to my segment, Natural Muscle is Easy Maintenance. So I checked it out, and I gotta say, really enjoyed the video. It was professional, respectful, and did not have ad hominem attacks, which is so common among other fitness influencers. So much respect to you, Greg. I appreciate the fact that you kept it to the discussion. Nothing more than constructive criticism. You shared your honest perspective on things, and now I'm gonna return that back to you. Though I will say that we mostly agree than disagree.
So if you want to know the secrets, just stick around and let's see.
The secret is drugs and genetics, but more on that later.
We intuitively know that the reason you look that way is because the that you're injecting.
Yes, does anyone actually think that The Rock looks like this because he's doing empty stomach cardio and the hardest worker in the room and training at midnight, maybe having brioche French toast cheat meals and big stacks of pancakes on the weekend? Really? Come on, people, think.
Right, you gotta think and stop being so gullible. What you see out there is nothing more than an illusion. And The Rock is a perfect example of this. He's at this age, going to get his best physique yet? That tells you the entire story, as well as demonstrating how powerful these steroids actually are.
Most people who train, period, look like
Exactly, Alpha Destiny. Most people who train, period, look like yes, most people don't look amazing.
Exactly, Greg. Most lifters don't look good, but we have to ask why. How come the majority of YouTube fitness is full of novice lifters? Is it honestly because 90% of the audience has bad genetics? Or are there other factors at play, namely the fact that they're following inefficient routines? Following advice from guys who don't know what they're talking about. They're using the wrong system. I think that also explains why guys who sometimes take steroids don't get the best results. Because everything was wrong from the get-go. That's not gonna solve the nutrition, the programming, all the things that go into building a physique in the first place. But what I was saying in my initial video is that if you do things right, then you introduce steroids, then the gains are in fact significant. And I made no reference to actual numbers, just the vagueness of their potency.
The world now, it's like a global village. We see all the best physiques in the world on a friggin' iPhone. It's right in front of us. So all 1,000 of the billions of people on the planet, we see them all and we think, wow, that's pretty easy to get because look at all, there's 1,000 people on my phone, they look like this. They're very rare. They're very spread apart.
Absolutely. We are bombarded by the best of the best. This is why the strength and muscle standards are so distorted. Everybody is confused because what they see is not relatable whatsoever. And there are reasons for that, which we both talk about.
You're not gonna go from being skinny fat to looking like He-Man or The Rock on a friggin' cycle or 2, or 20, even if you abuse it. You still need amazing genetics to have those PDs work the way that you think they will.
Of course, if we're talking about comparing ourselves to The Rock or some of the best people on this platform, as you described, then yes, you need the genetics to match it. But if we're talking about becoming the best version of ourselves or improving significantly, then it's not about comparison anymore. Look at the real naturals on this platform, like myself, Omar Isuf, Scott Herman, etc. Compare that to the of enhanced users on YouTube and Instagram. They dwarf us so hard, there is no comparison. There's nothing we can do. They are on a completely different level, and I would go as far to say that most of them probably don't have elite genetics. Maybe their genetics are just like us. Heck, we see guys go from a 315 bench to 405 in less than a year. It may not be a 500-pound bench press, it may not be competitive level compared to other steroid users, but it's still a lot better than what they would have gotten as natties. Strength and size-wise.
I'm giving you the most accurate representation of what I think they actually will build. You're not going to put on 30 to 50 pounds of muscle by taking PEDs.
You're not going to put on 30 to 50 pounds of muscle by taking PEDs. So that's in isolation. If you build 30 pounds of muscle as a natural, for example, you're not going to gain 50 pounds of muscle additional. I would agree with that.
You are not. It is not normal to think you're going to put on 20 to 30 pounds of muscle in a year on steroids.
I don't know who's saying this on the internet, so you can respond to them. But yeah, that's not normal, obviously. Like, that's pretty insane. And if you actually do manage to pull that off, man, I worry for your health because I can only imagine the stuff that you're injecting.
Most don't even put on 15 pounds of muscle on a big cycle. Most do not do that.
Most don't put on 50 pounds of muscle on a big cycle. Okay, that's fine. But what about after many years of taking this stuff, which is what we see with these fitness influencers? You will gain that 15 pounds of muscle, which you wouldn't have done as a natural.
If it was that easy so many more people would look amazing. They work a lot.
But this is exactly what we see in the fitness community. Guys who take steroids look way better than the real naturals on this platform 100% of the time. There's zero competition. No one can come even close to what these guys are doing. So, yeah, you admit it. They work. And this is what we see over and over and over again. These are the people with the biggest followings. They're the ones making the most amount of money. It's the fake natties. It's why your fake natty videos are so popular. Because we know that we're not going to look like this. And they work so effectively.
But not as much as you think.
How much do I think, Greg? I made no exact comments about how much muscle you'll gain year per year. The only thing that I discussed, which you did not include in your video, was comparing twins. One will surpass the other one by a significant margin. I've made no reference as to how many pounds of muscle you'll build or what exact strength numbers you'll be acquiring. All I'm saying is you're going to be a much better version of yourself. I'm being very vague here. So you can't say how much of you when I've literally made zero statements about what that quantifies.
So we're brainwashed into thinking the amount of muscle you're going to gain natural is as much as people should expect with steroids. I've seen the charts. It's ridiculous.
Well, I don't know what charts you're talking about. I'm familiar with yours, which is actually really good. And I don't think that a lot of people would believe that what you're going to acquire throughout your entire lifetime as a natural, you're going to put just as much with PEDs like by itself. So basically double your frame. I don't think people are buying into that. Obviously, you're putting a lot more, but even 5 pounds of muscle makes a difference. Just guys who go on TRT, you can see how they change. So it doesn't take a lot of muscle to have big impacts. That's why when we throw out these numbers, oh, it's only 10 pounds of muscle extra, that's a lot of muscle. And actually, since we're on this topic, I want to plug in Greg Doucette's charts. Let's check out this clip.
Start using my chart because it's the best chart in the world.
Yeah, it's a pretty good chart, not gonna lie.
Way more accurate than every single chart you can find. Mine is the best. You know it's true. I'm right 99% of the time. Used to be 98. I'm getting smarter. It's 99% now. Okay? Sorry, it's fact.
I don't think it's a fact that you're right 99% of the time and that your chart is indeed the best. Maybe there's some underground chart that's objectively better. I would say that as of right now, compared to the mainstream, compared to what's been offered, yeah, your chart is the best. Anyway, this is a different topic, but the significance about this chart is that the natural muscle expectations are beautiful. This is what you should be promoting more.
50 pounds of muscle is the amount of muscle I put on in my entire freaking competitive career with PDs, with them in my entire career. And I have amazing genetics. So what makes you think you're going to put on 30 to 50 pounds of muscle in a couple of years on PDs if it took me 20 years to do that?
Which is not surprising. If I go by your chart, you probably put on 30 pounds of muscle as a natural, started plateauing, and then with the PDs, you gained that extra 20. Or from really undershooting, you gained that extra 15. But still, that is a significant amount of muscle, Greg. And it's not what you did over 20 years now. Because 20 years would have never given you that extra amount of muscle by your own chart. You're gaining 1 pound of muscle or less per year. That proves how effective the steroids are. That you can gain that much more muscle despite having a physique that rivals steroid users. You were defeating them in competition, man. You were the best of the best. Unbelievable physique. Probably would have to train for years and years just to gain a tiny bit more muscle. The fact that you can overcome that plateau by taking these highlights exactly what I've been saying this entire time. And the thing is, you were already elite. So you just leveled up even further. For most people who get into competitive bodybuilding at this level, it's not going to take 20 years. In fact, some of them surpass your size in far less time than what you did. We see the pros right now, how young they are. They blow up fast, not in one cycle, but it's much quicker than what it took you to do. And that's because you waited for all this time. So to say that, oh, it's a 20 years with the PEDs, no, it's not. It's a shorter time period with the PEDs, mostly natural training. That's where your experience really lies, which is, in fact, respectable. I actually commend that more than what you did with the PEDs.
I'm one of them. I need it. I abuse steroids. It's not smart. It's not healthy. And why do you do it? Why are they doing it? Exhibit the rock.
And that's sad, Greg. You shut down your own production when you didn't have to. You were defeating steroid users on stage. You had world-class strength. Why'd you even go on PEDs, man? I mean, look, it's your choice. You're a grown man, you're on HRT, and everything's all good, and you keep things honest, and that's awesome. But I find it a shame that you had everything. Now you have to rely on these drugs when that wouldn't have happened in the first place. Hey, maybe you would have been taking TRT in 5 years from now, Not at this age, which you can argue is like, whatever, you're going to get on anyway, but still, you shut down your own production and you know what you're talking about. Think of all the noobs out there who watch informative content, who claim to be doing it right, that still get screwed over. That's a very sad thing to happen because, as you said, they want to look like the Rock. That's the craziest part of all. They don't accept themselves for who they are. They're constantly comparing themselves to other men, and once they realize that they're not going to look like these fake natties, that's what makes them want to get on the sauce. And that's why we should be encouraging what's obtainable. That's why I'm saying you got to reference your chart more, because that chart is a beautiful chart. And that's why we also got to look at the elite stats that I provided earlier, which I'm going to cover more soon.
The Rock wasn't always a superstar. He started somewhere, just like you. And you're thinking, well, I want to be like The Rock. And you know you're not doing that natural. So you start taking PEDs because why? Because that's what people are doing.
Which is disgusting. And that's why the fitness community is not really about fitness. These people should not be looked up to. They are drug influencers. That is all they do. I said this in my first segment. I see no inspiration when I look at these guys. None.
So I'm not going to sit here and agree 100% with Alpha Destiny and say, oh, no one should ever do it. Because listen, the truth is people are doing it. And the truth is steroids do work. And the truth is people are getting supplement contracts, sponsorship deals, and everything. I'd rather tell people the truth. The truth is steroids do work.
Unfortunately, that is the truth. And again, I respect the fact that you're open about your usage and you're willing to call things out for what they are. That's cool. I wish it didn't have to be this way. But ultimately, we can't be delusional about what the facts are. People are going to continue to be enhanced. The natural game is pretty much dead. Natural bodybuilding will never come back. It's a sad pill to accept, but that's what it is. So by having open conversations, it makes us more informed as to what's going on with other people who might be lying about their usage. That's pretty much the best thing that we can do. And I think that that's what you try to do with your videos. Though, at the same time, I'm not going to say that you do this because you don't. You certainly don't. You even made a disclaimer at the end of this video. By having more discussions about it, even though it's good to inform ourselves, it kind of makes people want to jump on it more. And that's their own prerogative. At the end of the day, you got the free will to jump on it. But when everybody is using and there's that social peer pressure, it's like you got to have a strong mind to say no. So it's disappointing the fitness community has gone to this point.
And I'm not telling you to do it. I'm not encouraging you to do it. And if you ever do, go see a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Go see your doctor. Be careful.
And that's good advice, Greg. People should see their doctors because what they'd hear is that they don't need PEDs. You have 2 functioning testes, baby, please. The only guys who get on that stuff are the ones who destroy the natural test levels, or they just happen to have low T because they're a bit older, or they happen to be the rare exception. But most guys who train for 5-10 years are not going to have low T, and they're going to build an impressive physique in the process, probably even move on with their lives, be like, you know what? I don't need more muscle of this anyway.
Yes, I have in fact abused PEDs. Long term, that can affect how long I live. I may not live as long because of it. My blood work looks amazing, and I do a lot of cardio, and I eat exceptionally healthy, but even still, having abused PEDs, it may in fact shorten my life. You need to hear that.
That's unfortunate, Greg. Don't you want to live as long as possible for your viewers? But seriously, dude, I find that sad. That you had the best of best physique and now you've shortened your lifespan to a certain extent. Possibly, maybe you've recovered a lot of that to a certain extent with the dieting and the cardio and paying extreme attention to health. But I'm sure it hasn't been easy. And maybe a lot of guys won't be as lucky as you, just saying.
You don't want to hear that. You just want to hear, well, Coach Greg, your blood work's amazing now. So all those years you used tren, it doesn't affect you. I don't know that. It may have. But if you're natural, you don't have to worry about that.
I'm sorry to hear that, man. I hope you live as long as possible. I find it really sad when you got guys who are all about fitness. They eat clean and they have amazing looking physiques, yet they get a heart attack in their 60s or 70s, basically dying at the same rate as your average American who doesn't do any of this stuff. So that's always been mind-boggling to me, that people with the best looking physiques are dying young over and over again. Most people would have been happy if they dedicated themselves to the natural journey correctly.
So think of that. And short-term gratification. Yeah, if you take PEDs, you're going to look better right away. But if you stop them, it's going to go away. And trust me, that can lead to body dysmorphia. Trust me, that can lead to body dysmorphia.
Exactly what I say in my videos.
When you see yourself looking amazing, like I'll look back at some old photos and I'm like, man, I want to look like that again, because that's pretty impressive. Like I look at me now and I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty good. I look at the old photo, I'm like, whoa, I was pretty jacked.
If you're used to having this certain amount of size, you lower the dose or even get off, Now it's the off-cycle nonsense. And you're a shadow of your former self. And then you look at your older videos and pictures. You're like, wow, I wish I was this again. And you just admitted that yourself with this video of you posing next to John Meadows. Also a cool guy, by the way, for those of you who aren't subscribed already.
Then I read the comments, Coach Greg need to get like that again. Oh, you look better here. I'm like thinking, yeah, but I was on trend. Coach Greg need to get like that again.
Doesn't that suck, Greg? If you would have stayed natural, you would have looked the same. Or maybe regressed a little bit, depending what your T levels are at. But there would have never been that experience of becoming smaller. It would have been maintenance or getting a little bit better year after year. Which again highlights the main message of my video. Natural muscle is easy maintenance. When you decide to enter the dark side, and I do believe that it is a dark side, you can disagree if you want, stuff like this happens. Looking back at your older photos, being regretful, it's like, damn, that sucks.
If they were to train for 10 years, heck, even 5, they would have the body they always wanted.
And here's the bullshit, and here it is. He's telling you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. Telling you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear.
According to you, just like you believe steroids don't help as much as I think, I also believe that those who train for 5-10 years, heck, following your chart, would absolutely be satisfied with their physiques. It may not be their dream physique. It may not be Chris Bumstead level or Mr. Olympia status or competitive bodybuilder status, but it'll be something that is extremely impressive, that no one can call out for being small, and that you can look in the mirror every day and be proud of and not have body dysmorphia that gets worse and worse over the years because you're starting to inject all the stuff into your body, and now you have to maintain a certain image while getting more and more freaky.
Everyone does it except Coach Greg. I swear this is what I see all the time. What? Not everyone. Don't get pedantic on me.
No worries, I acknowledge the fact that you don't literally mean everyone. So I'm not going to strawman your position. But what I will say is that everyone has their own opinion, and it doesn't mean that they're you. Like, I genuinely believe what I say. And I'm confident in my coaching abilities that I can get a lot of lifters to 315 bench. I think this is extremely realistic, and the standards have been pushed far too low for most naturals. I try to give the best advice that will actually help real naturals in fulfilling their potential. I believe what I say. I have conviction with my words. This is not misleading anyone. And I do make a lot of clarification in my other segments. What you saw is just a little rant, which doesn't dismiss anything that I've said in there, but doesn't paint the whole picture.
He's saying you could have got the body you wanted if you had just trained natural for 5 to 10 years. No, most people, in fact, can't get there. You can't get the body you want in 5 to 10 years natural. Do you know how I know that? Because most people can't get the body they want in 5 to 10 years enhanced.
Most people would genuinely be happy if they trained for 5-10 years and acquired the muscle that you labeled in your chart. Just like you say you're right 99% of the time, I would say in this case, I'm 99% right of the fact that most lifters would indeed be happy with those standards.
How many of you want to look like Chris Bumstead? How many of you want to look like Chris Bumstead?
Not me. And most of your audience sure as doesn't want to look like that either. See, there's this big disconnect between what steroid users find to be aesthetic and what normal people find to be aesthetic. I would say most of your audience, and probably mine, wants to look like Henry Cavill. Now, we can talk all day about whether or not he's enhanced, but I will say that his physique is achievable naturally. So it doesn't matter what he did to get there. If he put on 20 pounds of muscle, according to Greg's own chart, that would in fact be realistic. So even though we might not get there in a short amount of time, if we dedicate ourselves long term, we'll end up looking rather similar. So that's more of a relatable goal. Not Chris Bumstead or being like a pro bodybuilder or the mass monsters that you see on Instagram and YouTube. Heck, the fitness model look is probably far more desirable for most men. Or the old school bodybuilders like Steve Reeves, Leroy Colbert, George Eiferman. Obviously there's genetics that go into that, but that's more of a desirable physique for average people. And you can see it in my comment section all the time. You can say it's natural delusion, but your perspective of what looks aesthetic is not what most of us thinks looks good.
How many of you can? One person named Chris Bumstead.
What's your point? No one's making videos saying you're gonna look like that guy.
That's a lot of disappointed billions of people who can't look like him. Even if they try, even with PDs.
Well, Chris has 2 million followers on Instagram, and I would say that most of those people probably don't want to look like him. It's like saying, oh, the people who follow Arnold or Ronnie Coleman want to look exactly like him. So there is a thing called being a fan, and that's what we're seeing with Chris. And it's not billions of people that are being disappointed, although I know you're speaking in hyperbole here. Point is, there's no proof that lots of people are being disappointed because they're like, oh, I'm never gonna look like Chris. I don't think that most individuals are delusional enough to think that they had a chance of looking like him, even with PEDs.
So no matter what you achieve, you want more. We're never satisfied.
I agree that a lot of us have a hard time being satisfied, but what you're suggesting is far more prominent among steroid users. These are the guys who have the most body dysmorphia, and I think that you know it too, Greg. I think you know that I'm right, that guys who have been injecting for decades have the most body dysmorphia of all. And these are the ones who want to be bigger and bigger and bigger and are willing to sacrifice their health. If you're willing to go that far, despite the health complications, heck, you risked it too. That's the backwards thinking that needs to be corrected, in my honest opinion. By staying natural, you accept the inevitable consequences. You accept the fact that things are going to be slower, and you learn to be content with something that is indeed very impressive. You take what you can get, and you don't worry about things you can't control. In my opinion, it's more stoic, but you can disagree with that if you choose to.
The Rock wants his newer, more improved physique. He's 48. Even though he shouldn't even be trying it because it's not healthy, he still wants it.
And shame on The Rock for that. But you can't take his mentality, which is the exception. Keep in mind the body dysmorphia that goes into this. Taking steroids at that level, being 48 years old. You can't take that mindset and apply it to the general population that doesn't think like him. So yeah, we want more, but we're not going to do what The Rock is doing.
So what makes you think that you can get this training natural for 5 to 10 years? You can't.
Well, looking like The Rock, training 5-10 years, we already know we're not going to look like him. But we do have natural inspirations out there that will look relatively similar to. Look at the real naturals on this platform. Put their physiques side by side. We're all relatively similar. There aren't significant differences. And if you train for 5-10 years, you'll probably look similar as well. Like, this should not be the exception. It should be completely normal to look something like this. So it's only when we compare ourselves to the fake natties, extreme people who are outliers with the best genetics, that's when it can become problematic and extremely delusional. But I genuinely believe that most people aren't actually thinking this, unless they're really young and just brainwashed.
Sorry, telling you what you need to hear. You can't do it. Set realistic expectations, and that's not looking like The Rock.
Again, I never said The Rock is a realistic expectation, but if you watch my other videos, I do talk about what you can do as a real natural.
No, I'm sorry, Alpha Destiny. Most of the physiques that you want, you can't get natural. And in fact, you can't get them enhanced.
Only if we're looking at the enhanced physiques. If we look at relatable naturals with average genetics who happen to take their performance to an elite level or have been training for 5-10 years and acquired the muscle mass that is described in your chart, then yeah, they're gonna have the body that they want. What we see with social media, you described how it's this bubble of the best. That's not what most people want. And I need to keep stressing that point.
I like the purpose of the video. I like what he's trying to promote, but it's filled with empty promises.
I like your video too, Greg, and you're keeping it 100, but we just don't have the same belief system. So I'm not trying to mislead anybody. You just watch my other videos and you'll see that our standards are not the same at all.
So then he says the same thing for elite strength standards. Wouldn't you be happy with those numbers? So why take steroids? You just train for 5 to 10 years. You should be able to achieve those. No, they're elite strength standards for a reason.
This is an EXRX generic chart. There's nothing that's super elite about this. You see, there's a difference between elites and super elites. Or the 1% and then the 1% of the 1%. That's what this chart represents, and it's very vague, and there's nothing like unrealistic about this. Bench press, if you weigh 181 pounds, elite is labeled as 345. Advanced is labeled as 275. I think the majority of my viewers, and maybe yours too, if they train correctly, they train harder than last time, right? They can get a 275 bench at 181, and that will be advanced according to this chart. Elite is a good standard to shoot for. It's something that you should strive to get in the next 10 years, but it's not unrealistic. So I don't think you analyze the chart because your numbers are far outside of this. Bro, 320 pounds body weight, 425 bench is considered elite. I don't think this is overshooting whatsoever. I really mean this, guys.
Elite is in, most people can't do that no matter how hard they train. They're elite standards. I could do it. I had the world record in the bench press. Of course I could do it. Can the average person achieve elite standards in powerlifting? No!
So I agree. Like, if we compete with other powerlifters, we're not gonna be elite, but we're gonna be elite according to this EXRX chart, man. That's why I don't think you actually read the chart, and that's okay, dude. Or you just skimmed over it very briefly, because I think if you actually read it, you won't disagree with what I'm saying. And if you do, then again, we have to agree to disagree. That's the only thing we can do.
We have to get our heads out of our asses and stop thinking that everybody that takes steroids looks like the freaking Rock. They do not.
Of course, because only The Rock will look like The Rock. It's genetics at the end of the day. But will you be a bigger, badder, far more improved version of yourself on a significant scale? 100% yes. If you're able to do a 4 or 5 benches in Natty, you can probably get 500 with PEDs, which is significant.
He is right. If you go on HRT, TRT, like Coach Greg, you are not going to be as big as when you were blasting. You're not going to lift as much as you used to lift. But I do know that by stopping those cycles, doing cardio, and eating healthy, I at least have a better chance of extending my life. I choose that. I think that's a smarter alternative.
You have a better chance of extending your life. That's great, Greg. I really wish the best for you in that regard. But the smartest alternative is not getting on PEDs to begin with. That's how you maximize your longevity. And hey, if you're prone to something, you'll know that nothing problematic can develop as a result of taking these drugs, most of which happen to be illegal in different parts of the world. So by not taking that risk, that's ultimately the best solution. People talk about minimizing risk. Let's eliminate it completely. That's my perspective. Let's eliminate it for an issue that could have been resolved by training hard for 5-10 years, acquiring the elite EXRX numbers, and getting the muscle mass that was described in Greg's chart. Let's do that instead of risking our health and making our body dysmorphia a lot worse.
You need to come to the realization that you can't look the best you've ever looked forever. You can look the best you can for that given time, but it can't be better than when you're younger. You get to a certain age, 35, that's a good guess, and after that you start to regress. It's just a normal human function.
Yeah, that's how the natural game is, and if at some point you start regressing, well, at least you'll still look really good, and you know that you push the limitations of what you were capable of. And it's also when you can start doing TRT, because at this point, you actually need it. Not that you shut down your own production.
It is in fact true you can maintain a physique you've achieved with a lot less work than it took to get there. About 1/3 the amount is enough to maintain your physique. So if you trained hard your entire life and you're 35 and you peaked out and you train half as much as you did, you can probably maintain that look. You don't actually need to work as hard to do as much volume as you once did. It takes more work to build to a physique than to maintain that physique.
And isn't that a beautiful thing? You're not dependent on any drug and you can maintain your physique far more easily. It's a checkpoint that's so hard to undo.
But I don't agree with Alpha Destiny, who's saying that if you take a massive steroid cycle and you blast, you put on a lot of muscle, and then you lower that to 1/5 of that dose, that you're going to lose a lot of that muscle. Yeah, you lose some, but you can keep most of it in most cases. It takes a lot less steroids to maintain the muscle that you built than it does to get there.
Well, look, I don't have the knowledge you have on this subject, so I'll give it to you and say that you probably are correct. But you did admit previously that you don't have the same physique as you used to have because you were taking Trent. We still have to recognize that you are going to lose to a certain extent. And if that's even 5-10 pounds of muscle, I would still call that quite significant compared to what a lifetime natural would be dealing with.
So for example, when I'm on HRT, I can still maintain a lot more muscle than I would if I was 100% natural. And then if I blast again from doing HRT, I'll build some muscle, but not as much as you think. Typically, I can maintain within 5 to 10 pounds of the most amount of muscle I could possibly gain, when taking tren, growth hormone, testosterone, every freaking steroid you can think of. Maybe 10 pounds more muscle can I add to my physique than if I'm on a low-dosed testosterone cycle.
I hope that people don't get on a low dose as a result of hearing this information. But let's be honest, 10 pounds of muscle is still a lot. If we look at your chart again, and you're getting 1 or less pounds of muscle per year after a certain amount of time, you can see why that really is a lot.
You can maintain a lot of muscle on HRT compared to the muscle that you had when you were blasting.
If it's true that you can maintain that much size, then we're going to see a lot more of this in the fitness community. We're going to see people who take a significant amount of steroids, get to this crazy psychotic physique, and then they're just going to maintain a certain degree of it with a low dose. And then it's going to go back to the hard work. Look, I barely do anything, yet look how I appear. It's the problem that I'm always talking about in my videos. So To me, I view this as a negative thing for the fitness community. So yeah, I won't make further comments about that point. You probably are correct in saying this. But what I would be curious about is, what if you became natural again? Not you specifically, Greg, but those people who are able to maintain a certain degree of size with a low dose. What if they did a proper PCT, they recovered, and now they're full-on natties again? That would establish how much the steroids are really helping. And that's what I'd love to see more of in the fitness community. People who've been taking for a very long time, they get off completely. What's going to happen to their size and strength? Is it really some of the numbers that these guys are talking about, those who are open about their usage? I think that is the ultimate question.
Now remember, not telling you to do low doses, moderate doses, high. Never break the law. Always listen to your doctor.
That said, I like how you ended off this video by saying, never break the law, always listen to your doctor, and you're not telling anyone to actually take these things. Because that would be really bad, and I would get if you were recommending something like that. But you're not, and you have my respect for that. But anyway, that's my complete response video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys can take information from both sides and apply it to you in the best way possible. So let me know if you like this type of content. Let me know if you want me to cover more topics that are present in the fitness community. Let's hear in the comment section. And with that said, I'll talk to you all next time.